Welcome back, Hokie Nation, to this edition of TSL Today. In the first half, we talked about Virginia Tech women's hoops, their win over Duke, and previewing NC State. And now it's time to talk about the men's slate, with wrestling coming up as well. David Cunningham is still on set, Kyle Marshak behind the scenes, and then Jack Brizanine will join us in just a second. David, Virginia Tech men's basketball, 77-70 loss to Georgia Tech on Wednesday night in Atlanta. Quite the ugly performance from the Hokies, and it likely ends their NCAA tournament hopes.
Yeah, it's quadrant 3 loss on the road at a Georgia Tech team that's not very good. Kind of the opposite of Notre Dame, where Georgia Tech's offense is not good at all. 15th out of 15 teams in the ACC coming into that game on Wednesday night, and Tech just couldn't stop them. Virginia Tech's defense, I should say, is just not been very good lately. Georgia Tech's defense is good, and that's what causes problems, right? Josh Pastner, he goes all out. It's really, really funny. He'll go from a 1-3-1 to a 2-3 to man-to-man. He played a triangle and 2 at one point. He does all the different things just to make it difficult. And for a while, it kind of stunted Tech. I thought Virginia Tech was better down the stretch, but the Hokies could not defend anybody. And they haven't really been able to over the last couple games. You know, the last 3 games, they lost to Boston College, beat Notre Dame, and then went on the road and lost to Georgia Tech on Wednesday. Their last good defensive performance came against Virginia. Yeah. That was 2 weekends ago from Saturday. So they're just not playing good defense right now, and it's tough because you can't really change a lot of stuff up midweek. Again, we kind of talked about that with Tech women's basketball, which is why it's so impressive. But yeah, that kind of ends their NCAA tournament at large bid hopes. I mean, they're already kind of on the outside looking in. They're sitting in 12th in the ACC. If the season ended today, Virginia Tech would be playing in the first or second game on Tuesday, the first day of the first day of the ACC tournament. Tech was the 7 seed last year, which so after Tech's horrible start last year, Tech still ended up as the 7 seed, which is impressive. This Tech team is the 12 seed as of Friday, so there's only so much you can do, right? You're 5-10 in the conference. You can get to 500, but you'd have to win out. And even then, you're going to have to do some stuff because at this point, Tech's lost to 3 teams in the bottom tier of the ACC. 2 to Boston College and 1 to Georgia Tech. In an ACC that is, while the teams are closer together, it's like an accordion effect. The teams are closer together, but the best team is not as good as it has been in the past. And the worst team is actually probably worse than it has been in the past in Louisville, right? The ACC's, the 6th or 7th best conference in the country. It's not like you're getting credit for all these great wins. Even the North Carolina win doesn't look great right now. So yeah, Tech's just not in a good position, and it stinks.
Well, you mentioned it. Yeah, people were like, well, maybe the Hokies can win the ACC again. Well, they're probably going to have to win 5 days in a row, which is almost impossible to do.
And never been done before. And 4 was hard enough. And Tech was only the 2nd team ever to win 4 in a row. It's tough. And again, I don't think this team has played with the intensity down the stretch this year that it showed, that last year's team showed, right? That team was grinding defensively every single night. Night in, night out, that team played defense and didn't necessarily have the best shooting performance every single night, but you knew the defense was always going to be there. This Virginia Tech team can't defend. And the offense has been fantastic. Grant Bazilis looked like an all-ACC player in the past 2 weeks, but it's kind of like a one-man show at times offensively. And Tech is putting up a lot of points, but at the end of the day, you got to play defense.
Hokies shot just 41% from the field, 6 of 23 from 3, good for 26%. And according to you, I saw on your Twitter feed, just 13 of 25 when it comes to layups, which is certainly not going to win you ball games.
Virginia Tech had 14 or 15 offensive rebounds and 15 offensive rebounds, I believe, and 14 second chance points, or maybe it was the opposite. Not great. Not great, Bob. Just plain and simple. I mean, Tech had a lot of second chance opportunities and just missed them. A lot of layups that just missed. Yes, some of them were contested, but this team is just sloppy right now. And Tech didn't give up, right? I thought Tech was better down the stretch, pulled within 6, got it closer than that. I think
it got to 5 at one point. Yeah.
But again, you can't play well for 13 to 15 minutes and not play well for the other 25 and expect to win a basketball game.
21 points from Grant Basile, 17 from Justin Mutz. He almost had a triple-double, and 11 from both Hunter Couture and Sean Padula, but ultimately not enough. This is the big question I have for you, and I think most of the fan base is wondering, what has been, I know they've been struggling defensively, but why has that been the case? Like, why has this happened in between Virginia? I mean, it was a 4-day difference between Virginia and Boston College, and they have not been good defensively since. What happened in between that time?
I think Tech was fired up for the UVA game, especially after what happened last time. And I thought Sean Padula's defense was better. Notice that the point guard opposing point guards have not necessarily been killing Tech lately. I think Padula's defense has been okay, but I think Tech's rotations have been slow. Notre Dame is kind of a case of its own, right? Tech switched everything against Notre Dame because Nate Laszewski and the Irish are so hard to guard. Mike Bray's so creative with what he does. But there's no excuse for Boston College and Georgia Tech. Those offenses are not very good. And I think Virginia Tech's just a little lackadaisical, right? BC, Quentin Post said it for Boston College after the game. Tech is not good defending the pick and roll. Tech is not good, especially when it's slow developing. You kind of think about a little bit of Wake Forest RPO in football, right? Slow developing, hard to stop. Tech was not good defending the pick and roll, has not been great all year. And that exposed Tech in that game against Georgia Tech. Just I'm not really sure what was going wrong in that Georgia Tech game, but in my opinion, Justin Mutz and Hunter Couture, the two best defenders on this team, have not necessarily at times looked like the best defenders. And I think that's a problem, right? You need your best players to be your best players. That's self-explanatory. And I just think there have been times where it's gotten away from them. And I think Grant Basile's defense has improved, but I think across the board, and Mike Young's trying to experiment, and doesn't help that MJ Collins broke his nose and is playing with a mask, and there's no Darius Maddox. It's tough, but I think the team's not connected, and that's a problem. And Chris Coleman wrote a great piece about it yesterday. This is the first time in Mike Young's 4 years that Tech has been sub 100 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Even the Wabisa B, Naheem Aline, Hunter Couture offense, Mike Young's guards in Mike Young's first season with PJ Horn and Landers Nolly, those guys were plus 100 in adjusted defense. So something's going on with this team, and I'm curious to see how. I don't know if it's an easy in-season tweak, but you've got some good teams coming up. I mean, Pitt ACC leaders coming to town on Saturday. You got to go to Duke. You got Miami at home. Florida State and NC State, or Florida State and Louisville should be kind of easy games, but at this point, you're losing to Georgia Tech and Boston College. No game's a gimme.
Well, so let's quickly turn our attention to Pitt inside Castle Coliseum on Saturday. The Panthers, the surprise team in the ACC, picked 14th in the preseason poll, and if the season ended today, they would be the ACC regular season champions. What can you tell us about the Panthers?
Well, they'd be co-champions with UVA, but they would be the number 1 seed in the tournament. And I think that's kind of the wild thing. Pitt was picked 14th. Pitt's physical, man. As Mike Young said on Tech Talk Live last night, kind of reminds you of the old Jamie Dixon Pitt teams. Just really tough, physical, athletic. Hokies have struggled with athletic teams this year. Georgia Tech was good. Boston College is somewhat athletic, but Miami's really, really athletic. Big, physical, gonna make it tough, play really good defense. I think, this is one of the tougher matchups Virginia Tech's had this season, and it comes at an interesting time because Pitt's got a team under Jeff Capel that has been really, really good, but Capel's done a fantastic job in turning this team around, and I think transfer portal helps. I think that's self-explanatory.
Well, Pitt head coach Jeff Capel probably the favorite to win ACC Coach
He should,
of the
yes.
year. NC State's Kevin Keats could be up there.
Yeah,
but
at this point, Capel would have my vote.
yeah, that's who I would vote for, too, if I had a vote. Blake Henson having quite the year for the Panthers, 15.9 points a game, 6.3 rebounds. Jamarius Burton, a returner from last year, nearly 16 points a game. And then Greg Elliott at 11 and Nelly Cummings at 10.5, averaging double figures as well. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on, talking men's and women's hoops. We're going to do a little switcheroo here. Jack Brizendine is going to come on. David's going to exit. So, David, thank you very much.
No problem. Appreciate it having me
always.
on, yeah.
All right, Jack, here we go. Cool. Thank you. All right, Jack, welcome to the set, big guy.
Excited to be here. Always
So-
hyped to talk Hokies wrestling.
I know. It is a big day for the Hokies on the mat. Number 7, Virginia Tech, hosting Virginia inside Castle Coliseum tonight at 7 p.m. on the ACC Network Extra. Jack, all 10 Tech wrestlers are ranked. With a win, the Hokies will gain a share of the ACC dual meet title. So let's jump right into things. What stands out to you about tonight?
I would say senior night. I think senior night's probably the coolest thing about tonight because obviously you expect Virginia Tech to win. In my prediction on TechSideline.com, it's 30-6 is roughly what I would predict. I talked to the head coach Tony Roby Wednesday morning, and he said that Colin Girardi might get the start at 141 over true freshman Tom Crook, just because Girardi's a fifth-year senior. He started before. He's a really great guy in the program, and he deserves that moment on senior night. So I expect him probably to start at 141. Then you've got Mekhi Lewis, Hunter Bolin, among others who are going to have their senior night moment. So that's something cool to look out for, other than the fact that it's going to be a good match that the Hokies should do well in.
4 ranked matchups tonight. And again, if you want to get fully caught up, go read Jack Brizendine's preview on TechSideline.com at 149. Number 8, Caleb Henson, who could be the next Mekhi Lewis for Virginia Tech, will face off against number 27, Jared Verk-Loreen. Is that how you pronounce his name?
I'm not sure.
I probably just butchered his name. That's all right. And then at 165, you have number 16, Justin McCoy for UVA, wrestling number 27, Connor Brady. At 184, this is probably the primary match of the night. Number 7, Hunter Bolin versus number 16, Neil Andrasian. And then at 197, number 22, Andy Smith against number 25, Michael Batista. Hokies have the advantage in really the other 6 matchups. Is there any chance the Hokies could have trouble with UVA tonight? We saw what happened with Pitt a couple weeks ago in Castle. Any chances the Cavaliers give the Hokies some fits?
I don't think so. I think, as far as the ACC goes, it's definitely Tech, NC State, Pitt, and the big drop-off, UVA, North Carolina, and then a bigger drop-off in Duke. And that's not trying to throw shade at Duke, but that's kind of how it goes. Virginia's a good wrestling program, really good coaching staff. Has always been a feisty program, but I think Tech's just on a different level. I don't think that there's any. I had in the prediction that UVA might come on the right side of 2 matches, but I mean, to be honest, it could go either way. I could see Tech. Tech could just shut out UVA, and that's always a possibility. But I think it should be a match where Tech cruises. I think a lot of these seniors are going to want to go out on a high note in their final Castle Coliseum matches. So I think this should be a pretty easy contest. I hate to say that because Virginia is a really good wrestling school, but it should, for a school of Virginia Tech's caliber, it should be not a huge task.
Well, we'll save your score prediction for the preview. Hokies coming off of Tobacco Road wins over Duke and North Carolina. Again, to your point about Duke, UVA took down the Blue Devils last Friday in Charlottesville 45-3. So that kind of shows where the Blue Devils are at. Who needs to make the biggest statement for Virginia Tech tonight? Obviously, Bryson Donian was major last week. Tom Crooks was major last week, but he may not wrestle. Who needs to make the biggest statement for the Hokies?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone really needs to make a statement. One person I'm really excited to see wrestle is Eddie Ventresca. Eddie was named the starter about 2 weeks ago before Duke, and since then has had a Tech fall and the upset over the number 17 guy in the country. And he jumped to the rankings to number 23 after being unranked last week. So he's someone I'm really excited to see if he continues that tear tonight. I'm excited to see Caleb Henson against another ranked opponent. He's really just sort of, shocked. I don't want to say shocked the wrestling world, but he's sort of lit up the wrestling world with how talented he is as a true freshman. And, he's sort of just been stacking ranked wins this year. So as goofy as I guess it is to say like a ranked win's expected for this guy as a true freshman, it really is. To see if he can continue that success. I'm excited to see Bryson Donian rebound off of a loss because, he really doesn't have that many losses in his career. So you don't really see many matches with him trying to bounce back. So I think he'll be out with a chip on his shoulder tonight. Excited to see Mekhi Lewis wrestle in what is possibly his final match in Castle Coliseum. Same with Hunter Bowen. And yeah, I think it's just gonna be a really, really cool match for both teams.
Yeah, Austin O'Connor from Carolina, who, correct me if I'm wrong, the defending national champion.
No, he won. He was the national champion a couple years
2
ago.
years ago.
I'm pretty sure at 165.
He was the one who majored Bryson Donian last week in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I was thinking someone else.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So he majored Bryson Donian last week. So hopefully Bryce can bounce back. We talked about the ACC dual meet title. What are the chances the Hokies win the ACC? Obviously, NC State's up there. Hokies took care of them in the ACC regular season, though obviously the ACC championships on the wrestling mat are a little bit different, and Pitt's been surging as well. So what are the chances that the Hokies take away the ACC crown?
At the tournament, I would say, I talked about this on ESPN Blacksburg yesterday. I kind of went weight class by weight class, and I had maybe 4 weight classes where Tech has a very good shot at winning those. And I think 4 is probably good enough to get you that ACC championship at the tournament. As far as the regular season, Tech faces UVA tonight, should win that. NC State has UNC, tougher matchup than UVA, but NC State should win that. And Pitt has Duke. And I think if Duke somehow pulls off that upset and paves the way for Virginia Tech and NC State, I don't know what would happen. But I just think that Tech's got a really good chance to the ACC tournament, sort of, I guess, right the wrongs that they might have had in the regular season.
Sounds good. So you will be in Castle tonight covering Tech UVA for TSL. And then you'll be in Raleigh in a couple weeks too at Reynolds Coliseum, correct, for the ACC championship. So for all of that, what's your Twitter? At Jack P. Brizendine on Twitter? Is that correct? Okay, so give Jack a follow on Twitter, and then you can, as always, read his stuff on TechSideline.com. Does a great job covering wrestling for us here at TSL. Quickly, real fast, want to hit on, before we close it out, baseball and softball in action this weekend. Baseball opened up their season down in Charleston, South Carolina against the College of Charleston. A 4 p.m. first pitch today. That is opening day for Tech baseball. Of course, the Hokies a win away from Omaha last year. Meanwhile, the softball team off to a 5-0 start. Currently, they're losing to Oklahoma State as we're recording this podcast, 9-3 down in Clearwater. So they could fall on that one. But this is going to be quite a weekend full of tests for Tech softball. Number 5, Oklahoma, Nebraska, number 2, UCLA, number 10, Arizona, and the South Florida Bulls. So should be a fun weekend on the diamond for both Tech sports. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank Jack Brizendine across the way, David Cunningham, who was on for the first half and the first half of the second segment, and then Kyle Marshak, who has his alarm going off as our best podcast producer in the land behind the scenes. Thanks so much for tuning into this edition of TSL Today. We'll talk to you on Monday after hopefully a huge weekend of Hokie sports. Have a great weekend, everybody, and take care.